All right, you ready to talk about Star Trek Five, Josh?
Hello?
Hey, it's me. I'm at the place. Where are you? We're supposed to talk about Star Trek Five today.
Oh, yeah. Check your phone. I sent you some coordinates of where to meet me.
Some cor. Okay. Where is? Okay, I got them. I'll head over there now. Just waste my gas money. Hello? Hello?
Oh,
Oh,
hey, Alex,
oh God.
over here.
Oh, thank God. God, it's so cold. What are we doing out here?
Well, I'm glad you could make it. I figured we can get a little bit more into the environment here, like Star Trek 5, out in the wilderness.
Okay, but I get like no cell reception. I couldn't even find this place. How did he even answer my call?
Alex, you never called me.
How did you get the chairs out here?
The greatest enterprise of all is adventure. Star Trek V, The Final Frontier.
You're all grown up. How are you?
We're dad and daughter. Of course I'm gonna make
Alex,
fun of you for being bald.
Star Trek 5?
Oh yeah, sorry, I was just scrolling through TikTok.
I thought you didn't get cell reception.
So today we're talking about Star Trek V: The Final Frontier, directed by William Shatner. And you know what? I went to go rewatch this movie for the discussion, in addition to our reaction that's available on all our, platforms. And our best friends over at Paramount Plus took off the movies.
Yeah.
Couldn't believe it. I was pissed.
It's been quite a while since we've been with the TOS crew. If you're new here, we watched every episode of the original series, and then we watched every episode of the animated series, and then we watched the first 4 Star Trek movies, and then started Next Generation and got loads of comments. Why didn't you watch 5 and 6? Well, it's because it was in release order, and Star Trek 5 didn't come out until towards the end of the second season of TNG, and that's where we are now, finishing up the second season, and we finally got to return and watch Star Trek 5. And in a lot of ways, it was almost like real life when movies come out now. A lot of times the anticipation and the excitement to go see it kind of was more so than the actually watching the movie.
Yeah, I just feel like if we binged everything, it wouldn't feel as special, and we might actually feel about this movie how most people feel about this movie and not really like it that much. But I think just being away from our original crew for so long, I mean, being with the TNG crew has been great so far. It's been wonderful. It was just such a whiplash, like to go back to our crew, like, oh my God, I totally forgot. And it was so, just that warm feeling. Like, before things got super, like, I don't know, like the new Ghostbusters movie, to the point where they're just like beating the dead horse in every franchise. It doesn't feel like that yet. I mean, it's 89. Most franchises are probably still in their heyday at that point. So it didn't feel like that. I mean, eventually the nostalgia glasses wore off and the rest of the movie happened. You're like, oh, okay. But at first, it was like, I'm so happy to see these people.
Yeah, absolutely. And for me, that feeling didn't really wear off at all throughout the movie. Regardless, we'll get into obviously the quality of the movie and what we think about it, but that feeling of spending that time with the crew, and I'm not talking about the movie crew behind the camera, I'm talking about the crew of the Enterprise and the characters that we love from TOS. It was just great. And we're only going to get to do it one more time in a solo TOS movie. And then that's it. Everything that we watch after that, TOS related, will be a rewatch. And that's just insane to me. And I'm sure it was insane to the people who were actually watching it as it was coming out, not knowing how many movies there would be, or every single time not knowing if that was the last time. That's one of the positives for us going back, is we know what there is and prepare ourselves. Directed by William Shatner, as you said, and it's his directorial debut.
Okay.
And I thought it was, a decent enough directing job. There were a few things where I was like, oh, that's neat, that's good. And there wasn't necessarily anything directing wise that I thought, oh, wow, that wasn't great or that looked inexperienced. The only thing I would say is maybe the direction of the actors themselves, because some of the smaller characters in the movie that are new characters to this film, I didn't really care for. And I don't know if that's the actor's fault, the writer's fault, or the director. It's hard to ever really tell. But beyond that, I thought he did a serviceable job.
Yeah, there was plenty of cool, great lighting shots, and cool sequences, I would say. My favorite is like the flashback sequences. McCoy's dad, and then we see Spock being birthed, all that happening. Shatner's also partial to blame for the writing because the story is by him and Star Trek's classic Harv Bennett. The writer of the script is someone who I did not recognize, David Lowery. Yeah, I don't love this movie, this whole premise with any other sci-fi crew, and it's like, ugh, I think it would fall apart really fast. But the fact that it's very much carried by the cast, where it's like I don't know, I'm just picturing this whole premise in another setting. I'm like, no thanks. But the fact that it's, you know, our crew, it's like, of course. And not even like the stuff of the story. This movie can completely be carried by, I wish the entire movie was him camping.
If you stick your Vulcan nose up at these, you're not only insulting me, but generations of McCoys.
Yeah, the camping stuff was some of the best, and just character stuff overall. It made up all the best scenes. And even though they are a little bit older than in the show, it's been obviously a long time. You know, they didn't make the motion picture until 10 years after the show ended. So this isn't that far removed from the voyage home. Like, it's like a few years after. It's not a situation like today, let's bring everybody back from this franchise 30 years later. It's
true.
not that.
Yeah.
So they're still in it. You know, that you can still feel the vibes of the characters from all of these actors, even though they are a little bit older. And that's my favorite part of it, for sure. It is not my favorite Star Trek movie. I would go as far as to say, finally, The Wrath of Khan is no longer my least favorite Star Trek movie.
I still can't believe it.
But this is still in that same group with the other four. This, I wouldn't say, is a bad movie. I enjoyed it for what it was. Do I think a non-Star Trek fan would enjoy it? Somebody who's never seen Star Trek? I don't know what they'd really get out of it. Because for me, it was about revisiting these characters. I said at the end of the reaction, I think the best way I could really sum it up is, you know, it's like seeing a band that you loved decades ago and they're on a tour now, today.
Mm-hmm.
You know they're not in their prime, but you're going to have a great time getting to go to see them live and appreciate that you're getting to do that. I kind of felt the same about this movie being made, and presumably the next one once we get to it.
Yeah, true. I think every Star Trek film benefits of being its own film almost, or its own kind of film. How do you classify this movie? Like, I'm thinking like very generic science fiction movie.
I don't actually know if it fits neatly into a specific genre like the previous four. I think that it almost tries to take the successful parts of all of those and mix it into this one, and that's a very hard thing to do. A reason those first four were all so great is that the first one is a sci-fi film. The second one is a action film. The third one being an adventure film. And
Adventure
the fourth,
film, yeah.
and the fourth one being a comedy.
Yeah.
This one tries to be a comedy, tries to have adventure, tries to have sci-fi, and tries to have action. There's a lot going on.
Yeah, it tries to shove all of them in there with the shortest runtime, I think. What, hour 45?
Yeah, and it also tries to put in, which we saw a lot of in TOS, the more futuristic, religious, you know, what does religion and God look like in the future, where Sybok is essentially trying to lead a cult to find God. So we saw that a lot in TOS. So they kind of bring that element in. That we hadn't seen yet. The more so like pondering about religion in the future. I guess that was, but I don't know if there's a genre for that, but that is a theme for sure in this one.
Your vision, given to me by God. You are man.
The film opens up, the one I wanted in the motion picture, with like take off the hood, reveal the ears or something, but it's wasted on fucking Sybok.
Your faith, my friend.
You know, they do that reveal at the beginning, and of course you instinctually think, oh, a Vulcan, but then also Romulans have those ears in this in Star Trek, so I'm assuming he's a Vulcan, maybe he's a Romulan. I also don't know who he is. It's just like an odd choice to do that as the reveal.
Yeah, and he had a beard too. Have there been any other Vulcans with beards? So that
I
made
don't
me
think so.
So that made me think he was mainly a Romulan, but now I'm trying to think if there's any Romulans with a beard. But
Mirror Spock had the goatee.
that's right. That's
That's
right.
Mirror Spock, different universe.
Different.
Yeah, so that's the opening of the movie, and like you said, it's a classic, seen it 1,000 times before, nothing wrong with it, solid opening, introduce your villain, and I'm actually curious, and you guys can let us know this, was him being Spock's brother something immediately given away in the marketing? Like, was it marketed as Spock fighting his brother, or did you not know that until seeing the movie? Because they treat it as a reveal in the movie, but I feel like if the marketing had already revealed it, then going into the movie, that opening reveal would actually have more of an effect. Like, oh yeah, this is Spock's brother. But we didn't know that going into it.
I think our brains are conditioned to TNG's way of promoting things, like TV's way. It's like, oh, Q's gonna be here, so and so's
Yep.
gonna be here. But I feel like maybe film's a little more respect for the audience, maybe,
Hopefully.
and wouldn't advertise it that. Yeah, God, the poster of the movie is like a fighting
Face to face, yeah.
face to face, brother versus brother, blah blah blah. Spock's brother? Question mark. Like it's a YouTube thumbnail. Then we get possibly the most ridiculous superhero entrance. We've gone from Kirk in the motion picture with a slow pan up to his face in a window to him free soloing a mountain. Oh, what does Kirk do at 50-something years old? Oh, he's just climbing a mountain with no gear. It's like, oh, of course he is. And the fun part was trying to figure out, like, who is it? Like, who's climbing that mountain? And then we see that horrible perm. It's like, oh, it's Shatner.
Yeah, and that whole sequence I loved because he's climbing this mountain, obvious stunt double, and it's like the whole beginning is an obvious stunt double, and then he just turns his head and it's William Shatner, and then he falls off the mountain, and Spock comes in with his gravity boots and saves him. I'm thinking at this point, if the whole movie is this ridiculous, I'm in. Like, if they're going full schlock, full camp. But it really doesn't. It does in like a few spots of the movie, but it really doesn't. And I kind of wish it did, because we're all aware at this point the age of these actors, you know, what's going on. The Voyage Home was already very funny, but still kind of took itself serious. You know, just I would have totally been in if they fully went for it.
Yeah, another full-on comedy after The Voyage Home might have been like a bit much for Star Trek fans, maybe, where it's like, okay, what are they, just goofs now? But I think it'd be so funny since they're all like, I mean, they're like geezers, right? So it's funny the way they're like, their problems now is camping. Like, it's basically like Ernest goes to camp, but instead the big three goes camping. You know what I mean? I would pay to see that movie. And just the fun little problems they run into, the dialogue, them just trying to start a fire or something. That'd be great, but no. But that does lead to a great scene.
I knew I wouldn't die because the two of you were with me. I've always known I'll die alone.
And he's the last one besides Sulu and Chekhov.
In real life.
In real
yeah.
life, yeah. It's like, that plays into later. It's like, ugh.
Yeah, absolutely. And from the beginning, the film is really built on their friendship. It reminds me of TOS because the big three was really the main focus of that show. It wasn't like Next Generation where everybody is kind of on equal ground character-wise. Like, it is the big three, and this movie, again, focuses on that in a way that the movies really haven't, because Spock hasn't been there in his normal form. The first movie, he's cold, disconnected. The second movie, he's there mostly, but then he dies. The third movie, he's not there. And the fourth movie, he doesn't have his memory. So it's like he's finally back, and we have the big three in a movie. That was really nice to see.
Good night, Doctor. Good night, Spock. Good night, Jim.
Spock's finally like accepting his human side. He's had all of his growth from TOS, and he's good now. But I feel like he's still a little bit like classic TOS Spock here. We finally have him again. It's great.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a lot going on in this movie. So while it focuses on the big three, there's a bunch of variables. So we have the introduction of Sybok, and then we get the introduction of this town in the neutral zone, or actually this whole planet, but it focuses on this one area where it's the only planet where there's Klingons, Romulans, and humans in peace living there, but it's just absolute shit conditions and terrible. Then Sybok shows up there, captures all of them, and we thought at first, oh, they were in on it, but no, Sybok has this ability to basically brainwash you by making you face your trauma, essentially.
Yeah, that whole thing like doesn't make sense to me. It's like, okay, so you erase your pain and then you automatically want to go with this guy. It's like you still enjoy your friends, right? You still have your beliefs and morals despite having your pain taken away. Like, my back hurts all the time. If that was taken away, I'm not going to throw away my lifelong friends to go meet God with this guy.
Yeah, I get the metaphor they're going for. It's a cult. He's a cult leader. Like, I get it.
Yeah.
It happens in real life. I understand.
We have been chosen. The discovery of Shakari.
But it wasn't executed that great here. And maybe if they set it up from the beginning more clearly, this cult analogy and cult leader type metaphor, I would have bought more into it. But they don't even really reveal that until, towards the latter half of the movie. it does lead to what I think is the best scene of the movie with the big three and Sybok. But beyond that scene, it doesn't really offer much. Then we also get another variable of the introduction of these Klingons
Oh yeah.
who want to hunt down and kill Kirk simply because killing Kirk would be like a big deal.
Yeah, I think they're still mad from Star Trek 3.
Yeah.
I'd assume. So Austin Butler Klingon, just on this like war path, just to try to find Kirk and kill him, and that's kind of just like this little plot point that keeps like popping up every now and then. Like you think it's not important. It's like, oh yeah, the Klingons are here. Is this gonna go anywhere?
Yeah, and it kind of doesn't. I mean, there's a resolution, but it's like
They kind of saved the day a little bit.
the second act of the movie, leading up to the reveal of Sybok being Spock's brother, is pretty weak. Like, there's some gags, there's Uhura dancing and distracting the men. Them raiding the town to try to save what they think is saving these people, only for the Enterprise to be taken by Sybok. And then it leads to the reveal of it being Spock's brother, and we get some good scenes after that. But I'm thinking back to that second act of the movie, and after the Enterprise gets called in to this job, and it's not really much that's memorable.
How do you feel about Scotty and Uhura's relationship?
I had a feeling you would say something like that. So I brought us dinner.
I really like it.
Do you?
I really like it. Do
Okay.
I wish I had more screen time? Yes.
Yes.
More development. Hopefully in Star Trek 6 that's still going on. Don't tell us. But as far as just like the idea of it, yeah, like that's TNG is just full of like relationships. TOS we didn't get any. Kirk and Janice kind of liked each other, and then she got fired. So we didn't really have anything. That was awesome to see, I thought.
Yeah. You don't think it was forced like Bruce Banner and Natasha in Age of Ultron, where they kind of? Do you think they're just going to drop it later, or do you hope they're going to like carry through on this?
I hope they carry through, but I mean, even if it's dropped, the idea that in a movie that are like years apart for them to have a relationship in this movie, and then if it gets dropped, you can kind of just headcanon like, oh, it didn't work out. Like, they're like minor enough characters to where it's like,
Okay.
you know, whatever.
Yeah.
I hope it's not though. I hope it continues, but I thought it was a nice addition.
Yeah, it's definitely something more of them to do and work with, and with the whole like mind control thing later, and like Scotty's like, oh no, we'll do this another time, you know. And it seems like this whole thing's more about family, because there's a quote earlier on at the camp scene where it's like, what do we do when shore leave comes along? We spend it together.
Other people have families.
Other people don't. It's not us.
I do like Sulu and Chekhov continuing to be like the gag pals together, because those two are always at the front desk together. So the fact that like in the beginning where it's like, oh, I think we're lost. Like, oh, Uhura, we're in a snowstorm.
My visual says sunny skies and 70 degrees.
Yeah, their stuff is always great, and again, wish they were in there more, but you know, I think The Voyage Home is the movie to watch if you want to see everybody get to do everything.
Yeah, yeah.
And Search for Spock to an extent. But yeah, they were great. What they did get to do in this was pretty great. And then, of course, you know, they get taken over as well by Sybok, so then they become basically useless at that point.
Yeah. How do you feel about the Enterprise just completely falling apart? And they're like, oh, Enterprise, we need you.
The whole malfunction stuff I thought was, I guess, a neat addition. I feel like they've really, though, been playing on this whole, you know, in almost every movie, like, the Enterprise is old. Was it Wrath of Khan or Search? I think it was Search for Spock, where they were like, the Enterprise is being decommissioned. It's 15 years old or whatever. And it's like, and now they're still like, oh, it's malfunctioning. And then, you know, obviously it blew up in one movie. So I guess it's a nice addition, but it's not, I don't know. Everything with like the ship and the Enterprise, a lot of people make the Enterprise like a big deal, say it's like its own character. I like the Enterprise, but it's just like not my thing.
Yeah, the thing is, this is also the 1701A. You know what I mean? It's like
True, yeah.
It's not like it's the old one that blew up. It's
Yeah.
It's the A. Why is it falling apart? Like,
Yeah. I guess any ship can have malfunctions, I guess.
nah. Yeah. Right.
They get back to the Enterprise after first getting captured by Sybok, but then having to escape the Klingons with Sybok there in the shuttlecraft, and they're able to, you know, barely get into the Enterprise. And then we get a moment where Spock has the opportunity to shoot Sybok, and he doesn't. And this is right after that is when it's revealed that it's his brother. But you were really bothered by the whole "shoot him" from Kirk moment. How do you feel about that now?
You must kill me.
Shoot him!
felt so weird. I just feel like there's always a better resolution. Maybe I'm thinking more of Picard's way. Even though I don't think that's just a Picard thing. I just feel like that's a general Star Trek captain thing. Like, how about we take him out first and then, figure out what the problem is?
Yeah, I mean, think about throwing it back to Space Seed. Khan trying to take over the Enterprise, and when they finally get the best of him, they just send him down to a planet to do whatever he wants, and that ends up poorly for them. But
Yeah.
but so I agree with you. It didn't necessarily bother me as much in the moment. I didn't really think much of it, but I'm not going to defend it either. Like, I totally get what you're saying, and it just felt like a movie moment. Like, we have to reveal that it's Spock's brother, so say shoot him and he won't.
Yeah, maybe it was done for that purpose. But I rewatched the scene where Cyborg's dragging around Kirk, and I did see the wire that time. I'm like, oh, there it is!
What do you think about the whole it being Spock's brother? In general, the idea of it, and then also the execution.
The reveal, I think, was perfect.
Technically, you are correct. I do not have a brother.
Hey, you see? See?
I have a half-brother.
I gotta sit down.
Of course. Like, God damn it, Spock. Like the perfect way Spock would answer that. Oh, I don't have a brother. I have a half-brother. I think, in theory, I do find the character of Sybok very fascinating, like a Vulcan. But I feel like it should have been more well-known, especially in Vulcan culture. And in fact, like, it was probably just created for this movie. Like, I don't know. But like a Vulcan going against like all logic and going full emotion, and like if every Vulcan did that, would they have the same ability to brainwash people as he does? Like, that's kind of dangerous because I mean they're able to mind meld. So would all Vulcans have that ability to have their own version of erasing pain? That whole thing's terrifying. I do find it fascinating because Spock wants to be Vulcan so bad, like full Vulcan, and he represses his human side. And then there's Sybok, who's full Vulcan, puts his entire Vulcan side aside. So I find that duality interesting.
Yeah, I think the idea of it is all good, all great. I think it was all fell short in the execution. The movie could have been built as Spock versus his brother. That's the movie. But instead, it was just kind of a small element in a larger plot that had really nothing to do with that. And the film treats it like it's not that big of a deal. Like, they give it a reveal and a motivation and everything, but it's really not that big of a deal in terms of playing into the movie. So I feel like it's such an interesting idea, everything you just said. Why just completely put it on the back burner for the whole movie? And then beyond that, it's just kind of like not that interesting the way they do it. It's like you took what could be really interesting and made it not that interesting. So it's disappointing.
Yeah. I think everything with this movie just feels like all these ideas, but they all just never... They could have taken one idea and went crazy with it, but they had a bunch of ideas and went...
Nowhere.
Flatlined with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point. Like, imagine if the reveal fell flat for like, no, I am your father, and Empire Strikes Back. It feels like that kind of flat. You know what I mean? Where they didn't like, what? It's like, oh, he's my brother. And then it's like, oh, okay, let's move on. We're still going.
Yeah, I don't even know if we should, never mind. I was going to go deeper in that analogy, but doing a Star Trek analogy, I'm not even going to step on that. I'm not, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I'm not even going to do that.
The stakes weren't like that. They didn't go that crazy with the stakes.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, the whole thing being his brother didn't really play into much later into the resolution or anything really.
Because the way Sybok ends up dying has nothing to do with Spock. It's his half-brother. It's a thing. All right.
Yeah, they should have had like a final like farewell goodbye where it's like, I forgive you, or something where it's like you were always, something where it's like they actually have an emotional scene together.
Anytime you're going to retcon something like that with a character for a movie, you're already putting yourself at a disadvantage to start because you have to do the extra work. And this is the same thing for Kirk having a son. You have to do the extra work because that has never been a thing for these characters that we already knew. So if you're going to convince me that this person has existed the whole time and our character has known about him, because in both cases, Kirk's son and Spock's brother, they knew they existed, but never mentioned them at any point up until now.
Yeah.
So now you have to make me believe as the audience member, why did they not mention them? And if they didn't mention them, why did they matter? And in neither case, I think Kirk's son is worse. But in either case, they don't really convince me of either of those things. So it just comes off as, one, a break in your suspension of disbelief. But even putting that aside, it comes off as, well, if Spock doesn't really care, then why would I care, about Sybok being his brother? Like, who cares?
Yeah.
What's the point?
It's true when the character to do that with is Vulcan. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because he was do as little as possible to express that feeling and connection, because that's not what they do. So it's tough.
And that's why I think it's not as bad as Kirk and his son, and I'm not like too harsh on it. It's just a little bit more disappointing because I hated the idea of Kirk having a son that we never knew about, that he did know about.
That
but,
he didn't know, because
yeah.
he definitely has kids he doesn't know about.
Yeah. But the Spock brother thing, because he is Vulcan, I'm like, oh, I can buy that he would never bring him up and not think it's a big deal, and I'm into this. This is an interesting idea. But then they just didn't do anything with it. So I think we've probably exhausted this topic. But
Yeah.
It-
Why would I bring him up?
exactly. It does lead to the best scene of the big three and Sybok in the room where he does, "This is my evil plan," even though it's not really that evil of a plan at the end of the day. He just thinks that God exists at the center of this universe. Shakara,
Planet Shakara or whatever.
and he attempts to brainwash the big three by making them face all of their pain. And this is the only examples in the movie of the visual representation of it. Everyone else, it happens off screen. But for Bones, Bones and Spock, we get to see it on screen. And Bones in particular, that whole scene and DeForest Kelly's performance was just stellar.
God, yeah. Yeah, Sybok reveals, like, oh, I'm not doing anything to them. I'm freeing them. I'm taking away their pain. It's like, okay. We were kind of like, oh, okay. And then I think the lights get real dark, and then we hear, Leonard. And I think, like, McCoy looks and looks back. Oh, God, don't do this to me. And it's like, oh, and then he walks over, and, like, the dying dad there, and, like, I'm getting goosebumps. We were frozen during this scene. Like, a lot of the times, especially when things, like, aren't, that interesting, we'll just yap it up about about nothing.
Yeah,
but, like,
they know. Yeah.
they'll tell us. But for this scene, I think you and I were both frozen. Like, I couldn't move. I'm like, this is fucking amazing.
I can't stand the pain. All my knowledge, and I can't save him.
And then basically, he makes the choice to, like, pull the plug on his dad because he has this disease they haven't figured out yet.
Not long after, they found a cure. A goddamn cure!
So if you hadn't killed him, he might have lived.
No!
He feels guilt about it, and it's like, no, I did the humane thing. It's like
I just love that little detail with Bones being the doctor, that
the doctor that couldn't save his dad.
and that he's the one that made the choice to pull the plug, and then they find the cure. Any human, anyone that goes through that'd be devastating. But for Bones specifically, it was such a great character choice that it made me wonder, where was this in the rest of the movie? This great character, like, clearly Shatner knows the character. He's been, dealing with Star Trek for over a decade at this point.
Right.
The people who wrote the movie clearly knew that, but it's like the only example in the movie where it's that strong of a character moment. But you know what? I'll take it. It was great, probably my favorite moment of the movie, so I'll take it. And then Spock's is still good. Loved seeing a young Sarek.
Young
Stone Jaw Ewing Sarek.
Stone Jaw Ewing Sarek. And he just says, so human. And then, I think the camera, like right behind him is Spock. And he's just like, It's like the worst thing he could have said to him.
And in Sarek's previous appearances, we've seen this plague Spock and his psyche about being human, both in Journey to Babel and in Yesteryear, the animated series. That's something he's dealt with for a long time, so it makes sense for his character, although I loved the character progression of Spock being basically over it at this point.
You are my brother, but you do not know me. I am not the outcast boy you left behind those many years ago.
Oh, that's great. I didn't see that coming. I thought they were going back to the well of this being Spock's big issue. So I was actually pretty surprised with that. It doesn't hit on the emotional level of Bones' prior scene, but I really liked it still.
Yeah. Then it goes to Kirk's turn. It's like, no, I need my pain. My pain makes us who we are. I wouldn't be who I am without my pain.
Great line.
Yeah, that's really amazing. And then I guess Bones and Spock are the only ones strong enough to have their pain taken away and go, no, I'm not going with you. It makes sense because it's the big three, but the other ones aren't strong enough to...
I mean, he kind of fails with Spock, so I understand that, but Bones is bought in at first. Like when he's like, no, Kirk, you have to see it.
That's true.
He is bought in, but then Kirk is Kirk, and he just breaks him out of it because he can do anything. It goes back to my favorite episode of the original series. What I think is maybe the only flaw is Kirk being hit by the spores, but just not affected, too strong.
too strong, too OP.
You know, everyone else immediately affected by the spores, but Kirk gets sprayed twice, and he's just like, I'm the captain! And he's just fine, you know.
More people explaining that, like, oh, Kirk's love for his ship and his crew, like, overpowered. It's like, okay, dude.
Yeah, it's like, all right, fine.
All right, fine.
And that's my favorite episode, but still, it's like, even I can be like, okay. It's the Kirk trope, I guess.
He's Superman. Fine.
Yeah.
He's a Starman.
Can you imagine William Shatner, like, TOS age, playing Superman? That would have been nuts.
He could have done it.
Might have been a little bit short, maybe, for Superman, but put some lifts on him.
Lifts on him. Yeah, it's fine. It's trick photography.
So after that, this whole third act of going to Shaka Ra and finding this god, you know it's not going to be God. Like, no one's going to buy that they're going to introduce actual God. I mean, we've seen gods in the show, but it's just going to be another one of those, just another one of a representation of God. So you're just waiting, like, you know, that was, I'm serious. Like, it's just like, all right, like, I was just kind of, like, not bored necessarily, but, like, I was still invested, but I was just like, let's get past this part, because I knew this wasn't, you know.
Yeah, and I think it gets past in the best way with Kirk, like, excuse me.
What does God need with a starship? What does God need with a starship?
And I think he, like, zaps him, and it's like, and then Spock's like, I believe you asked, why does an entity like yourself need a starship? You question me.
Yeah, it was pretty bad. I didn't care for it at all. Then Cybok sacrifices himself.
Share it with me.
Didn't buy it. Sorry. Like, it just didn't. This whole sequence didn't work for me at all. And it also mirrors a lot of the motion picture climax of going down to see Voyager, and then the character that's been added to this movie sacrificing themselves. It's like the same thing, just a different.
Yeah,
it's a god instead of V'ger.
Someone's got to come with the big three, so the big three doesn't die. Damn it!
And there has to be a sacrifice to solve the problem.
Yeah, I mean, in that case, Cybok was the villain, and then the other two were, you know, not whatever.
Yeah, it's different, but
different but the same.
Yeah.
But then they're about to escape. I think God's about to get Kirk, and then at perfect timing, the Klingons show up. Kirk drops a classic, "Oh, it's me, you want you Klingon bastards," and we see the Klingon beam effect. The same way, because it's different from the Enterprise beam effect. I'm like, nice.
This captain has convinced them to save Kirk, basically.
I also love Kirk being like, after Scotty's like, oh, only two can beam aboard. You two, go, now.
She's got partial power, sir. I might be able to take two of you.
Beam up Spock and Dr. McCoy. Now.
Now, just
Doesn't think twice.
No
yeah.
hesitation. Get him out of here. I got plot armor. I was just free soloing this morning. I'm fine.
Yeah, exactly. Does this all take place in one day? I'm trying to think. Basically.
Probably does. I mean, we know how the hours bounce quickly pass.
Yeah.
In like the shows.
So the ending with the Klingons, yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, I forgot to bring up how weird it is to see them almost as villains again after all the growth of Klingons in TNG, and just to rewind it back to, it's like kind of weird.
Pre-peace treaty Klingons.
Yeah.
The moment where this movie could have gone from my least favorite Star Trek movie to one I really, really liked was when we thought for just a second that they were acknowledging the death of Kirk's brother.
I've lost a brother.
Yes. I lost a brother once.
The season 1 finale, Operation Annihilate, they go down to a planet where Kirk's brother lives with his wife and kid, and these parasites have killed everyone there except for there's a few survivors, and one of them is their kid. But Kirk's brother and his wife are both dead when they get there, and Kirk's brother is just Shatner with a mustache, and we get like one shot of them together.
What? Yeah, one shot. It's clearly someone else's head, for Kirk.
Yeah.
But his brother is just, him with a mustache.
And then they move on, and this kid basically is now an orphan and like has to move on in life without his parents. But Kirk doesn't really care, even throughout this episode, about his brother dying, and then never brings it up again. And we've memed and joked about it on this whole Star Trek journey because it should be like a big deal, and it's just never mentioned again. So in this movie, when Kirk says that line, "I lost a brother once," we popped so big.
I was lucky I got him back.
And then no, it's because, which is actually a really nice moment.
It is, but
I got him back. He's talking about Spock's death.
Yeah.
And bringing Spock back. And I don't know. I'm like 50-50. Part of me wishes that we weren't like fucking dumb and like had this whole meme and like we're thinking that he was referencing him.
Like, did we ruin that moment?
Yeah, did we ruin the moment? But seeing people's thoughts on our reaction, they really liked that because they knew, they knew our lore.
Yeah, yeah.
So I think that it's okay.
It's a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
It really is. It's like, because if we didn't, like, oh, actually, Kirk had a brother and he died. It's like, but
But they didn't acknowledge it, so it's just like a slap in the face, and that's one of the reasons it's my least favorite movie.
yeah, they weren't thinking about this. They don't fucking remember that. When the big three are back together, like on the ship, Kirk's like, I thought I was going to die. And Spock goes, impossible, Captain. You were never alone. It's like, And then another great line, I think Coy says,
I thought you said men like us don't have families. I was wrong.
the Klingon commander drinking, he runs out, and then Scotty comes up. Oh, here, have some of this. Pours a little drink for him. It's like, yeah, that's great.
I never thought I'd ever be drinking with a Klingon.
That's great, but like after watching like TNG, it's like,
Yeah.
It's like, it doesn't really mean that much. I mean, to them, yes, but to us,
Yeah.
where it's like we're having sex with Klingons now, bro.
Yeah. Get on the new. This is the new wave.
Get woke, bro.
Well, the ending is just back to them camping.
Yes, and they finally sing "Row, row, row your boat."
Merrily, 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 life is but a dream.
As a movie on its own, a movie that exists, I enjoyed it. I don't think it's a bad movie. It's not one that I never want to watch again. I'm glad I own it. I like it, and I don't know. I don't want to say anything too soon, but it's hard to imagine a Star Trek movie that I'm just gonna straight up not like. Like, I'll have problems with stuff, just like the episodes, right? I mean, well, there are some episodes that I truly don't like, so maybe there will be a movie eventually. But so far, everyone has been warning us about Star Trek V forever, and kind of falls in line with most stuff people have warned us about. Had a good time.
It was fine. I just feel like if this movie was not, the crew I love most in the world, maybe I would hate it. But the fact that it's, it's filled with moments with the people I love most, of course I'm going to like it.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, if it was like a disconnected random sci-fi movie, like, yeah, that'd be terrible.
Yeah, on Tubi. where this movie is probably sitting right now.
Yeah. Well, speaking of people we love most, let's see what our patrons have to say.
Oh, boy. All right, this one's from Cash Wednesday. Not sure if this is a popular take, but I think Sybok is the best Star Trek movie antagonist. And then in parentheses, I won't call him a villain. Or at least the most interesting one. While rightfully regarded as the weakest of the TOS films, I still feel the scenes with the big three interacting together and the Sybok scene still make it a fun watch.
I wouldn't agree that. I mean, I wouldn't call him the best antagonist. I would even, I would put Khan above him. I would put, the 80s above him. I would put Kruge above him, most definitely.
Oh, yeah, Kruge is my favorite. I think you and I were talking about this just on our own, about like who's the best overall villain. I think we both said Kruge.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess he'd be better, Sybok would be better than V'ger. This one's from Anthony. Fun fact, Lawrence Luckinbill, that's Sybok, who is still living at the age of 89, nice, is the son-in-law of Lucille Ball and the maternal uncle of Lana and Lily Wachowski. Interesting.
Whoa.
It's all nepotism at the end of the day.
I'm glad you said it. I was thinking about saying it. All right, this one's from Alexander. Unpopular opinion. I love this movie. It's the most TOS of the TOS films. I did say that. It did feel like a TOS episode. Featuring a god alien, that's why. And some of the best big three moments. All the ensemble stuff all the ensemble gets stuff to do, though the Uhura Scotty pairing is out of left field. I love the theme that we need even our shady past to be our true selves. True, we're saving money using the TNG sets, but dang it, I like it anyway. We forgot to bring that up. That one set, when they get, is it on the Enterprise? Where it's like, we're looking at that set. It's like, that looks like the set from that one episode where the TNG crew, Riker's crew, goes on that shitty ship.
Okay, so it was actually the other way around from what we thought. So it wasn't in Star Trek V and then they used it on TNG. They used it on TNG and then reused it for Star Trek V. That makes more sense.
That would make sense, yeah. If that's true, when they say about reusing sets, because that's the one where it's like, that looks just like that ship set. I mean, a lot of bridges look similar, but like that one, it's like, I think it's the same one.
Yeah, and then while there are a lot of people that have told us this movie's bad, it definitely does have its fans, like Alexander here. And most of the time when I see people who say they do like it, what they say is that it most reminds them of a TOS episode. And if that's what you're looking for with the movies, then I get why you would like this one. Me personally, going into the movies, I didn't want that. I wanted them to be their own thing because I have the show for the show. You know, it's like, this is a movie, you know, make it cool. So that didn't really appeal to me as much, watching an hour and 40-minute episode of TOS, you know, with a higher budget. There are cool things about that, and like he said, I agree, the some of the best, you know, big three moments, but yeah.
Yeah, because some TOS episodes at 50 minutes were a bit too long, so.
Especially a lot of the God ones.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
This one's from Stuart. Curious if you picked up on the subpar special effects, even for their time. Star Wars had led to an explosion in effects-driven pictures, and 1989 was when demand surpassed availability of artists. You can see the compromises in the warp effects, the Great Barrier being basically just blue mist god, etc. Yeah, I've seen a few comments about the special effects and being worried that we were going to say something and we didn't. I don't know if it's because we're watching the 50th anniversary Blu-ray. I don't know if they updated anything. It doesn't say it's remastered or anything. I don't know, but I did not notice anything. I mean, it looked fine to me. It wasn't anything that I was like blown away, like the motion picture on 4K that we watched, but it also wasn't like, wow, this is terrible for a movie in '89.
Yeah, I think a couple things might have looked polygon-y. The Blue Mist, yeah, it did look whatever, but nothing to the point where I'm like, I'm out. You know what I mean? Especially after, I think that we watched The Last Starfighter recently. I'm at this point where I'm like, I know this stuff is older, and I'm not really at a point to judge CGI unless it's like offensively bad. Like, I don't think anything in this was offensively bad. Everything just looked fine.
At the beginning, when Kirk falls off the mountain, he's like in front of an obvious green screen, but like it's a goofy scene, so I don't care.
Yeah, so you don't care.
I guess the one thing, and this isn't even really special effects, but when Cybok is throwing him and you see the wire, you know, it's like, I can hide that a little bit better. But that's more of like I guess that would be in post, hiding the wire. So
yeah, it's weird because during that scene, I saw the wire, but it's not when he's being thrown. It's when they're like, it throw him against the wall, and then it shows the wire when they're like struggling for a second before he throws him again.
He must. Yeah, I'm sure he was wired in for the whole scene.
Yeah, but they just forgot to oh, we don't need to cut it during this because he's being thrown during this scene. But it's like,
yeah,
wire's still there, motherfucker.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't think we noticed it as much as some people expected.
All right, this one's from Monty. As I stated before, this movie suffered from production hell. But I still enjoyed it. Fun fact, Sean Connery was approached to play Cybok, but turned it down because he had committed to Indiana Jones and The Last Crusade. And to that, I say he probably made a better choice, because I love Indiana Jones and The Last Crusade. And the relationship between Sean Connery and Harrison Ford would probably hit a lot harder than Sean Connery and Spock, in my opinion. Because the relationship between Harrison Ford and Sean Connery in that movie is one of my favorites.
Now, the only Indiana Jones movie I've seen is Raiders of the Lost Ark. I think it's an excellent movie, but I just haven't gotten around to watching the other ones because I just, like, I don't know. I've never just had I don't want to say not had the interest, but anyway, I haven't seen them. But is it true that none of them are really, like, as highly praised? Like, I feel like a lot of people... I've heard people say they don't like Temple of Doom. I've heard people say they don't like The Last Crusade. Obviously, the newer ones. I feel like Raiders is the only one that's like highly praised. Is that accurate, or I could be wrong?
I feel like everyone loves the big three.
The first three?
Yeah, the first three. Yeah.
That's interesting because I know for sure. I'm less clear on The Last Crusade, but I know for sure I've heard slander about Temple of Doom. I don't remember where or who.
I'm sure there's been some, yeah, but I love Temple of Doom. I love all of them.
So I know you've seen them all. But for me, that is one for audience cut. I've only seen Raiders, so I would be interested if anyone is interested in me watching either Temple of Doom or The Last Crusade or the newer ones. I haven't seen any of them except Raiders, and I really liked Raiders. I guess for whatever reason in my mind thought like, oh, this is the good one or the original one, and I don't need to watch. I'll get to those whenever. So.
Well, my pick's coming up eventually, so.
Yeah, that's true.
We'll see.
Nerds Gold says this movie suffers from the same thing as seasons 1 and 2 of TNG. Since there are so many other movies or seasons that are better, people rarely go back and watch this, further cementing in their minds that it's just a bad movie.
I think that's a good point, because I've loved a lot of TNG seasons 1 and 2. Granted, I don't have seasons 3 to 7 to base off of yet, or compare it to. But yeah, I will agree that there are great things in this movie, and it sucks that if you don't go back and see it because you think it's bad because the other ones you think are better.
Yeah, it's funny because they're kind of the opposite, where season 1 of 2 of TNG, it's at the beginning, finding its footing. Star Trek 5 towards the end, past their prime. So it's kind of funny in that way.
Yeah.
But I can agree. I think all of Star Trek is just so different from people who have seen it and love it and rewatch all of it, that are coming from that perspective of they know what they love, they know what they don't, versus us going into everything fresh. I think that's really what messes with our perspective, because while we try to go in as blind as possible, and I know I read a lot more comments than you, but like, you know, we're going to get a little bit of that influence, you know, whether we want to or not, as to where they got to experience it as it was releasing, and now they have all their own opinions. So it's an interesting difference in perspective.
Yeah, but what's really funny is that both came out at the same time, around the same time.
Yeah, true.
Seasons 1 and 2 and this movie both came around the same time and have the same, you know, feel.
And then everyone, I always say everyone, but it seems most people love later TNG, and most people seem to love Star Trek 6. So it's like it went from the Star Trek being in a funk to Star Trek getting better into the 90s.
What are the odds? What happened?
Yeah.
This one's from Ramen Noodles. Laughed my ass off when you guys saw Kirk was referring to his real brother, but meant Spock. Lol.
And I actually had to respond to this on the post here on Patreon, and I said, had he actually been referring to his brother, it would have become our favorite movie. Which is a bit hyperbolic, obviously, but I already talked about that, but yeah.
It would have been like such a wonderful payoff to all the gags we made, but nope. It was just, they pulled the rug out from under us.
I gotta read Steven's response to this. He says, I doubt Bill remembered that moment. Anytime he's asked what his favorite episode is, he says City on the Hill or something utterly wrong. Oh, gotta love him. Gotta love him.
City on the Hill.
City on the Hill.
Oh, yeah, that's my favorite one. Yeah, City on the Hill.
I would just imagine, like, the air leaving the room of, like, that convention or wherever he's answering that question of the fans, like, oh, like, knowing that he got it wrong.
Yeah, it's like, this is our guy, huh?
This one's from Ken. The weakest of the 6. Scotty getting conked out by his own ship is just wrong. The 3 singing was just too saccharine for my taste. No idea what that word means. I'm sorry. 10-year-olds don't sing that song. Why are they? So, yeah, we didn't talk about Scotty bumping his head. It's like Scotty would just randomly hit his head. Like, there's no reasoning to it. It just happens, and then he's concussed.
Yeah, I guess it was a reason for him to be on the bed, so Uhura could come. Oh no, you gotta do this. Oh, we'll do it another time. You know, just for that. But it's like, I'm thinking about all those tense moments in TOS where it's literally down to the last wire, where Scotty is sweating bullets. They're about to do something, and Scotty saves the day. Like, he's the fucking man. You know what I mean? It's like, holy shit, Scotty, you did it. And then, like, watching him bump his head, it's like, oh.
Yeah.
That's where we are now.
That's where we are now. Yeah, and plus, it's like you have the whole thing of, like, the ship is malfunctioning, and that he was on the Enterprise when this happened, right?
Yeah.
So it's like they could have done something where it's like, oh, something malfunctioned and swung out and hit him.
Yeah,
but no, he just hits his head.
Yeah, he even made a line where, like, oh, I know this ship better than... He said something where it's like...
Yeah,
then,
back of my hand hits your head. Yeah,
it's like...
Classic joke, but it's like, yeah, I didn't like that either, unfortunately. All right, and we'll wrap up with this one from Michael. I was 19 when I saw this in 1989. Hated it for 35 years until watching it with you guys. You didn't love it, but seeing it with you allowed me to lose a ton of baggage. Amazing. Well, appreciate that, Michael.
A ton of baggage, right? I hated it for 35 years. It's like, obviously, this guy probably had a full life of other stuff, but like, I'm picturing in my brain this guy just like at work, like, like 12 years later, fucking Final Frontier. What a fucking piece of shit.
Dartboard with Final Frontier on the bullseye. Yeah, I think one of my favorite things about being in this community and the Patreon especially is, you know, the phone cut reactions, is the people telling us about their experiences watching it with us. Because, like, unfortunately, at least right now, you know, we're not watching any of this live usually, and we're not watching it with anybody besides each other. Mm-hmm. So when we're watching it, that's our experiences with each other. And then reading the Patreon takes is kind of the closest we get to, like, experiencing that with them. they then get to experience it with us, which is just like a very surreal kind of thing to think about, but it's really nice.
Yeah, the whole thing is fun. I love commentaries sometimes. Like Red Letter Media commentary is one of my favorite because it feels like you're watching the movie with them. And if they've already seen it, they give you fun tidbits while you're watching it. I like to do that with movies I've already seen. But it's tough, like watching a movie you haven't seen. Like they are watching it. It's like the reverse of a commentary. You know what I mean? That's the whole weird thing about this channel. It's like I like commentaries of people I like talking about movies, but it's like people have already seen the movies and they're watching the weird flip of content. It's just weird. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I think it just comes down to it's the same thing as like you showing me Total Recall and wanting to watch it with me. That they want to do that with Star Trek.
That's right.
Whatever reason, whether we can believe it or not, they like us, they find us enjoyable, and want to show us that. And not everyone can be in person with us, so they get to do that. And it's kind of like the same thing. I think that's obviously the appeal of reactions in general, but as to where like reactions on YouTube can sometimes be like, oh, I want to see this moment, whatever. On something like Patreon, it's more so that full experience of, oh, I'm excited to watch that with them, which I think is really cool. And, you know, something about the internet that's really cool in general.
I was just about to say, yeah, the sad thing about adulthood is like you stop getting to have time to hang out with your friends and watch movies together, or like show them a movie. And like the only way we can do that now is starting a YouTube channel. And hopefully it takes off.
We're not hanging out unless we're making money.
But the great thing about the internet is that you can just find people that you find interesting and neat, and like hopefully they like the same stuff, and you get to, you know, watch the movie with them.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why when we don't like stuff, they get butthurt, just like if we were to show each other a movie and we didn't like it, it'd be like, oh,
really? Well,
yeah.
let me tell you something.
Yeah, I didn't care for it. Oh. So I get it.
Yeah. Or just, here, let me show you this movie. Okay.
Wrap it up.
Yeah. Yeah, quick story. We were hanging out with friends and we were like trying to pick. I remember this. It was at.
Oh, yeah, I know you're going to bring up.
Yeah, a group of like 6 of us. Like, we're trying to think of a movie to watch. And we put it on. And like, as soon as it starts, like, the other 4 right on their phones. I think you and I looked at each other like.
And we had both seen the movie already and love it.
Yeah, and so we were fucking pissed.
Yeah, because they spent, as a group, like half an hour deciding this. And then as soon as we put it on, they're all on their phones, and some of them like having discussions with each other. It's like, that's when we knew we had to start a YouTube channel.
We haven't seen them since.
It immediately dropped all connection. Well, that's it, Alex. That's Star Trek V, and there's only one more TOS movie left. But this one, Star Trek VI, did not release until several seasons of TNG in the future. So it's going to be quite a while, even though we're watching it at a faster pace, obviously, than it released. It's still going to be quite a while until we watch Star Trek VI.
I'm excited to get there when we're 40.
Absolutely. But in the meantime, I think that's all we have to say for this one. And we'll go ahead and sleep here in the forest tonight.
Okay, well, sounds good.
All right. Good night, Alex.
All right. Good night, Josh.
And good night, target audience.
Good night, target audience.
Good night, Alex.
Who said that?